Hello my friends, this is A Look in the Dark, Chapter 9, The Code, and this is the third part. Remember in the second part, Carol had seen a personalised number plate, thought about Stanhurst's personalised number plate, and thought maybe there was something here now that she could try with regard to cracking the code that his records were written in. When she returned to the house, the two men were sitting on a bench in the back garden enjoying a glass of Ricky's latest favourite red wine. Just off the shelf in the local off-licence, old boy, he had said, and only a few pounds a bottle. Carol opened the back door and putting on a mock cross face, she shouted, "Some boys you are. As soon as my back was turned, you started on the bottle. You couldn't even wait till I got back. Hey Dan, would you sort this food out? I just had an idea and I don't want to lose it." Carol wrote out the alphabet for the 17th time, but she had a feeling about this, and as he sorted out the food, Danny kept an eye on his wife. He too thought she was onto something. She traced out the letters in various ways, but following our hunch that a man who sought to follow in the footsteps of a historical figure would probably use his name as a basis for the code. Well, if he was as security foolish as Stanhurst was, as proven by the ease with which they'd infiltrated his office and records. The first few attempts did not seem right, but Carol was determined that this had to be pursued. Pushing the pieces of paper to one side, she walked into the kitchen and agreed with the men that it would be nice to eat outside. Her manner was a little smug, and now Ricky was beginning to notice, and the men exchanged glances. Ricky refilled the wine glasses of his two friends, and they sat in the seats by the lawn, the garden being long and narrow, so this was a good spot to enjoy the shade and have a view of any visiting birds as well as the nesting blackbirds. "Come on then, Carol, tell us, you're onto something, aren't you?" "I'm not sure, Dan, it's just an idea. As soon as we're eating this, I'm going to spin it around a bit and see what happens. It's a bit like the English Battle of the Boyne. Is that okay?" Her look challenged to them to ask any questions, and they didn't. Eating with unreasonable speed, Carol was back at the table while the men were only halfway through their food. When the men went back to work, they could see that Carol was making progress, both by the intensity of her attitude and by the wide smile she was wearing, as if she'd just told herself the best joke ever. It was, however, another hour and a half before Carol made her announcement. "Danny boy, Uncle Ricky, I've got it. Yes, I've got it." "You mean you've broken the code, dear girl?" "Oh yes, she's broken the code all right, Ricky, look at her." Carol was laughing, but there were tears in her eyes, tears of relief and joy. "Oh damn, we have him. Thank God, and yet these records are about birds, but using the Latin scientific names." "So what is the code?" "Oh Danny, we're slow. What is Stanhurst obsessed with?" "William." "Yes, Danny, I had to try several ideas, but the basis for the code is William, Duke of Normandy." "So what put that in your head, Carol?" Ricky was trying to catch up with her. "For that, Uncle Ricky, I have to thank Pam, 21G. Danny and Ricky exchanged confused glances, but Carol enlightened them about the flash of inspiration that had arrived at the red light down the bottom of Lock's Hill. "So what was that about the English Battle of the Boyne, Carol?" "Well, Uncle Ricky, it was a short lesson. But when the Orangemen all go marching on July the 12th in Northern Ireland, they're commemorating what they considered to be the very important date in the year 1690. Oh yes, dear girl, bowler hats and funny aprons. Well, in Britain, you lot seem to measure everything from 1066, when another William invaded. Of course, if you'd asked us, we might have saved you. Anyway, I'll give each of you a copy of the code and we'll be able to start translating these sheets of information." Danny looked at the code and was unsure how Carol had worked it out. She explained that she just had a hunch about Stanhurst's obsession with the Norman ruler. She admitted that she tried a couple of ideas that didn't work, but she remembered what her old maths teacher McNabb used to say: "If you can't work it one way, Carol, walk round it, view it from every direction, and then find the best place to start working from." So Carol had eventually hit on the title William the Duke of Normandy. If she didn't repeat the letters, which would not make for a sensible code, She got from the letter A to the letter P using this designation. She then worked in the other letters, starting a queue until she had a full 26-letter code, and it looked as follows. I'm going to lift the camera and show you, my friends, how it looked. You might get some idea if I can hold it up and just show you. It's a little complicated, but it's a code that works. As a sample of how the code worked, Carol gave them the Latin name for buzzard, Buteo buteo. In this regard, in code this read IPMJR IPMJR. Neither of the men really understood how Carol had reached her conclusions, but in a few minutes of working at some words from the records, they could see that she was right. She'd broken open the code, and now all that photocopying of the records was an open book. Or at least it would be once they had either handed it in to an obliging policeman to unravel, or else given the hours of time to translating it themselves. There were thousands of sheets of A4 paper, and it would be slow progress making translation of each word. They decided to take one sheet each and see how long it took to decode. Carol continued with hers, which was a British one, for a customer in the north of Yorkshire. Ricky, ever attracted by the exotic, slipped out a record from Africa, which turned out to be a supplier from Zambia. Danny, thinking of something else that also needed to be done, selected one from Ireland, and that in the north. This too involved records of a provider of creatures. They all started to decipher at nearly 5:30. The room was very silent, and the only noises were those caused by scribbling on paper and the occasional annoyed expression because of what the records revealed. Despite his anger at Stanhurst's business accounts, Danny had to smile at the look of sheer triumph on his wife's face. Catching his look, she broadened her smile and he gave her the thumbs up. She responded with a blown kiss. Danny could see she was on a high, and she deserved to be. As he often did, Danny Green thanked God for his very capable wife. In the meantime, Ricky Claymore was tut-tutting as he gradually revealed what Frederick Tanzanati had been supplying from Africa for the enrichment of himself and Stanhurst. It was Carol that completed one whole record first. This is how it read. David Bryant, North Yorkshire, collector of birds of prey, customer 59. Order 1, Pernis apivorus, from supplier 17, a pair, juvenile. Order 2, Meliarax canorus, from supplier 17, one adult, male. Order 3, Halietus lisophalus, from supplier 8, one juvenile, male. Order 4, Polymatus bellicos, from supplier 17, one adult, male. Brian claims it was dead on arrival, but we must insist on payment. Payment obtained, and client warned not to lie again. Watch him. Carol was not sure what each of these birds were, but she guessed rightly that they were all birds of prey. Hers was a fairly small record compared with many of the rest, and it bothered her that it took her 40 minutes to decipher it and then check it for accuracy. She sat for a while thinking about the task of translating all these sheets into English from the code. It could take weeks, and she did so much want to get across the water and see her family. Her mood was now sliding downward. "What is troubling you, dear girl?" Sir Richard had noticed her troubled expression. "Oh, nothing really, Uncle Ricky. I'm just thinking about the hours of painstaking work it will take. It's going to take weeks, so it will." She handed her husband the sheet and went to the garden for some air. "Don't worry, Ricky. She's okay, but there's something on her mind. Did you hear about the arrest and charges made against some loyalists in Belfast?" "To be frightfully frank, old boy, I'm afraid I switch off a bit when I hear the news from Ulster. It's so depressing. I'm sorry." "Well, her uncle has been arrested. That's her mother's brother. He's a vile guy, but to be honest, well, Carol's aunt's okay, and of course her mummy's up the wall about it all. And dear Carol would like to see her mother, right? Right. So do you think, Daniel, that now is the time to hand this lot over to the men in blue? What do you think? Is it time to hand all things over to the police now the code is broken? thousands of sheets of paper yet to be deciphered, Carol worrying about what's going on within the family in Northern Ireland. The next episode will show how things can be managed from here on. Thanks for listening, my friends, and I just thought, for the sake of David and Pauline Murdoch, I'd wear my Denis the Menace tie today. Hope you like it. Nice to talk to you all, my friends. All the very best to everybody. Love, peace and happiness to you. Thank you. Bye bye.